Hi, Ash.
Hey.
Hi. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Dancing to the Music or Dance to the Music. I should know my own stuff. Shout out to Snipes and Ladies of Hip Hop again for providing us with the space. And today we have the wonderful Ash Lauryn with us, producer, DJ, cultural curator, all the things. So, hi and welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Had a good gig last night.
Yeah.
As you know, you were there. Me, Stefan Ringer, Ron Trent, Damn Funk, who unfortunately I didn't get to see his set or performance. But yeah, just kind of feeling good from a successful gig. Still coming down from the high that was Detroit last weekend. So yeah, just ready to move into summer now.
Great. I was gonna ask, last week was movement, and I guess we all just still recovering from that. Yesterday was Brooklyn, or in between you went home. What is home for you these days? Musically and also I guess generally where's home?
Yeah, I mean Atlanta is where I live, so obviously I'm from Detroit, but I've been based in Atlanta for over 10 years, so that's definitely home where I feel like I go back to kind of retreat and get grounded again. I guess it's my musical home in a sense of when I am making music, working with Stefan, all of the music we've put out was made in Atlanta. I mean, Detroit is still home too, because I feel like that's my roots, and it's always really grounding going back to Detroit as well, and just kind of taking time to reflect on my personal journey, taking time to just experience those musical moments with my blood family, which is also really special as well. So that's cool.
Yeah, I saw your mom at the party.
Yeah. They come out. They don't miss a beat.
That's so dope.
So
that's dope. And like you said, you played yesterday in Brooklyn. And I'm fortunate to have heard you play. Get my grammar right. Multiple times now in different cities, even in different venues.
Yeah.
And yesterday, at least to my ears, it was sounded deep and a little bit harder than what I've heard sometimes before. I've heard very soulful sets and then a little bit more classic club classics.
Yeah.
So I was wondering how do you determine what direction you go before you start a set?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it was kind of just the set time and the energy of the party, and I noticed it was kind of like a younger crowd. So I do like to take those moments just to, I don't know, go a little harder, if you will, or kind of just keep up the energy of the party. And also I think just to, display different sides of yourself, I think it's cool to know someone's sound, but you always don't want to know exactly what it's going to be. You know what I mean? It's definitely cool to be versatile. Because, you don't want to be put in a box. So although I do love soulful house music, I don't want people to think it's always going to be a super uplifting, happy, There's a time for that, but sometimes if you're getting into the booth, it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you can take it somewhere else. So I like the opportunity to do that.
That's dope. Let me see. How do you take stock of your DJ moments, if that question makes sense? Or not just the DJ moments, but your career in general. Are there certain times of the year or a specific time of the year where you say, every time of the year I reflect back on what I've done the past year or what I have done so far in my career? Are there specific ways and how you do that, or specific moments?
I'm a very nostalgic person, so I'm always, even if it's not publicly in my own mind, I'm always reflecting on the journey. But we were just speaking about Detroit. I will say that's always a time of reflection for me, because I think this year I realized, I've been going to movement for 20 years.
Wow.
I had a friend, we were looking at pictures of us, my senior year in high school, I think. We went down to, it was DEMF at the time. And it's also my birthday weekend, like, 90% of the time.
Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Yeah, so it's like I'm reflecting on like my whole existence, like my journey in electronic music, of course, like, going back to the festival. So yeah, that's probably one of the times where I feel like every year it's kind of like a moment of reflection, just to sit back and just say like, yeah, like you did it. And also to realize that you were kind of manifesting and planning a journey sometimes when you're not even aware that you are, because I wasn't really thinking about DJing 20 years ago. I was just there.
One of my questions actually, when you started DJing, I have an idea, but I'm not quite sure for how long. But even if we both put a time frame on, like, I started DJing, I've been DJing for, 10 years or whatever. Was there ever a time, or what was the moment where you was like, I think I want to do this? And when I say this, do this for a living, or, like as a career. Because I've heard you in interviews before, and I know that you've been in the scene for a long time before you started DJing.
Exactly.
And that maybe I can ask two questions in one, where we can also talk about the importance of being part of the, I guess I can use the word scene, or community, right? Before you actually start DJing or producing, or like being part of like the commercial process of it.
Exactly.
So if you don't mind like telling us the story about how you got into DJing. I know you answered this question before.
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as I recall, it was Movement 2011. So like I moved to Atlanta in 2007, 2008, around that time. And I was kind of like out of the loop with house music. I was into it before, but I'd moved to Atlanta. I didn't really know where to go to find it. And I ended up finding House in the Park. So I went to House in the Park in 2010, which kind of got me back into like, I love dance music. I want to start going back to Detroit for Movement again. So me and my sister went to Movement in 2011 after missing, a few years. And that was the year that I started to notice like, wow, like a lot of these DJs that I like and that are cool are kind of like, getting up there with age a little bit. It just seemed like there was a gap, with like people who were millennial aged like DJing. And there was also definitely a huge gap with women. So 2011 was like the first time I was like, man, maybe I could do this. Or I felt like there was an opportunity, like a lot of people weren't doing it. I don't know if anyone else was considering it at the time. But me and my sister were super into music. Also, we were like making playlists on YouTube. So we were already kind of like DJing in our own way. And yeah, like from there, I think by 2012, I got some gear. I had some turntables and that were gifted to me. I had a friend that was like, yeah, do this. I support you. And I think maybe a few years later, I like met Stefan, and he was kind of like helping me, like telling me. I think my first mixer I bought off Stefan for like $50.
Oh,
and,
sweet.
Yeah. So
steal.
Yeah, exactly. So it was cool. So I had people around me that were, like you said, I was on the scene, so I already had like so many DJ friends and, contacts that could, help me or give me little tips and whatnot. So
yeah, the reason why I asked that is because these days it seems as if it's, first of all, technology wise, it's easier to just get into it, and then you see a lot of, especially through the pandemic, a lot of people starting to DJ or like picking it up and then playing in their home and in the living room, which we all did at some point, and still do. And then maybe play online a little bit, but all of a sudden they play out. But they've never really have been part of, I always say part of the dance floor. Like they never really went out. They never really were part of our community, never supported in that way the parties that,
exactly
are there, the DJs that play. So that's why I mentioned you've partied before and the other side of the dance floor.
Oh yeah, and I mean I'm always very vocal about that. I'm like, I was there, like I paid my dues. But it's just important. I mean, it's something that I'm proud of, not to say like, oh, You know, because sometimes I feel bad. Like, I don't want to judge. It's not someone's fault because they learned about something later. You know what I mean? And I know not everyone's story can be mine, you know, which is super cool and authentic. But I am proud of my story, so I definitely always let people know. And, you know, it was really cool this past weekend in Detroit at the Deep Detroit party. Like, Delano Smith was actually one of the first DJs I became acquainted with, like, when I was like 19.
Wow.
So again, this was I'm not thinking about DJing anything, just kind of hanging out around the music. But, you know, I just took a moment to be like, I love her, like, I support her, like, you know, she's been doing her thing since she was a kid. Like, it feels good to just be seen in that way, because there are, you know, a lot of people who maybe learned about this during COVID and, like, you know, blew up and get all these opportunities, which is great. But I think it also kind of goes along with this instant gratification culture, which a lot of young people are. It's like, oh, Ash Lauryn, I'm so inspired by you, like, because, you know, you're cool and you're traveling the world and you're doing these things. And although my career, you know, did kind of pop off in a short time, a lot of people still don't know. They weren't there for those years where I was flying to Dimensions Festival to support Alce, you know what I mean? Like, spending my own money just to go to Europe and get a taste of the scene, going to parties for years, supporting other people, throwing parties and booking people, just really immersing myself in the scene. And I think if there's anything I would suggest to newer artists, it's like, of course, it's great to be successful. We all want the clout, the shine. Everybody wants to travel the world. But I think it makes your journey that much more meaningful when you're contributing something outside of just yourself.
Right, right, absolutely. You mentioned Kai very briefly, and also Delano Smith. In general, what is your view, or how important do you think is mentorship in this industry? Not just for yourself, because I know Kai was a mentor to you, but in general, like, do you think it's important, or do you feel like, no, everybody can do it on their own? Or
I think you can do anything on your own, but again, like, I wouldn't be where I am without the people that assisted me and helped me. Like Vicki Powell, for example, a queer woman from Atlanta. She has a collective called Deep South, and that was like where, you know, the roots of my early DJing started. I was a part of the collective. She was the first person to be, you know, listen to my SoundCloud and be like, hey, come do a gig with us.
that's dope.
Yeah, Lukuti, also known as Lorado, a DJ based in Berlin, but she owns the agency, the booking agency I've been on. And I mean, she brought me on board on the booking agency pretty early on. So there were people who saw something in me and took chances on me that didn't have to. So yeah, I think it's definitely important to have, like, mentors or just support systems, or you don't want to do it alone. You know, it's not fun. Like, it's not. So that's another reason why it's good to be on the scene, because that's how I knew a lot of these people, because I was at parties. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying to make all these relationships after the fact, which is cool, but I think it can also feel maybe a little unauthentic, because it's like, oh, like, are you just trying to meet everyone because you're trying to get to a certain spot in your career?
Right.
Which is why, like, I'm very... keep my eyes open of who's trying to, oh, Ash, hey, this. I'm like, all right,
Yeah, I just had this conversation yesterday about, I guess, getting, you know, having organic relationships with people. And like you said, it's important to be on the scene, and not with this perspective of networking, quote unquote. You know, it's not like a corporate networking event where people just literally go and then hand you the card and be like, oh yeah, let's do this, I do this, and
like, no, I saw you did this, or you should. And, like, I hate that. It's like, just say, hey, what's up? Let's just meet on an organic level. Of course, we can talk about music, but sometimes it can feel forced, or you just don't truly know what someone's intentions are.
Exactly. And, I agree with that. We talked about this already. Actually, no. I do have to the point of, like, being part of the scene and, like, you know, dancing before you DJ, which is kind of like the main part of this podcast. What is your, I guess, definition of an ideal dance floor? What do you wish? How do you see the dance floor? And what do you look for on the dance floor as somebody who is on the dance floor yourself, as a just attendant, whatever the word is, we'll figure it out. The auto caption will figure that word out for me. Or as a DJ, what do you look for? What do you wish for?
Women in the front.
Hey.
Definitely like queer people on the dance floor as well. I like to see colors. I like to see diversity. I love to see couples like making out or slow dancing. I like to see just a group of friends. You know what I mean? I like to see people that are actively enjoying the music. And, I don't mind if people, watch me a little bit, but I definitely also don't want to just be stared at. You know what I mean? Like, I like when people are in the moment just actively dancing, like eyes closed, by the speaker, just doing some weird shit in the corner. You know what I mean? Like, I like that.
Weird shit in the corner.
Yeah. I definitely don't like when it's like, K'd out bros or like somebody just looking weird or like, oh, can you play that? Yeah. But I won't talk about what I don't like. I'll talk about what I do like. But yeah, just like diversity and just smiling faces and people feeling good, people moving. You definitely want a dance floor of people that are moving and dancing. But I also have realized too, like some gigs, maybe people are enjoying the music, but they're not dancing. Some gigs, sometimes people are just mingling, and I'll have to remind myself, like, okay, you can still be doing a good job, and not everyone like, wow.
Exactly, yeah.
Because some stuff is more chill. But, of course, we DJ dance music, so the most rewarding thing is to have people dancing in front of you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The reason I asked that is because I watched the interview you did with Virgil, and I think he mentioned that he stopped DJing at some point because he got frustrated with the dance floor, and he mentioned the cell phones and all the things. So that's one of the reasons that I asked this. Also, obviously, for myself, I see even yesterday sometimes, like there's people who don't necessarily have a proper dance etiquette, and it's not a thing that you can learn. It's not like you take a class to know how to behave. It's more like, again, going out a lot, being on the scene, being part of the community, that automatically
you just kind of learn how to conduct yourself
exactly
over the years.
And then you watch and observe rather than just like jump right into it
and like take up space. A lot of people just take up space unnecessarily. So
hold on, I gotta I'm working with a foreign phone here, so I have to figure out my questions here. All right, we can go. I kept this question separately. You talked about movement already, and your party Underground and Black, which I can say that was for me the best party of movement. So thank you. Shout out to Stefan and you. And it was a dope party. The energy was really like, I walked in like, I don't know, 4:30 or whatever, and the energy was crazy, and it just kept on going, like going off. Underground and Black, there's a party. There is your blog. There is the track now. Right. So
we got a theme.
we
song.
So
clothing line dropping next.
See, What can you just explain or like recap how it started for you? Because it started as a blog, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, it started as a blog of, I think I just was like, started DJing and like things were picking up a little. I mean, this was still like a year into it. So, I mean, it was, when I say picking up, I'm looking at it like I wasn't doing shit. But for back then, it was picking up. But I was like, it might be cool to document this. So I've always been writing, and, Underground and Black, honestly, I think in my adult life was like the first like writing project that really started. And, I was just kind of telling stories about stuff on the road, or how it feels being like the only Black person at the party, or like, I wrote a post one of the first years I DJ'd in Detroit. I wrote a blog post called Earning Respect. And it's crazy because like this year I felt like I earned it, you know what I mean? But it really was just kind of to document the ups and downs of me being, a Black woman in the industry, a up-and-coming DJ in the industry, good, bad, the ugly. And from there, it turned into the NTS radio show. and then the party. And I think, I was doing a podcast, Underground and Black podcast. So, it's, I guess, continuously evolving. I won't lie. Sometimes I feel like I should be doing more with it when I see, especially after this weekend, like I see the power that, the brand, or if you will, has now, and like the following and people who believe in it. And it really was also created to inspire another generation of Black DJs. And what's crazy is like, it kind of happened. Like, there's a lot of people that kind of follow it, that know me, that are just always telling me how inspired. And these are literally people who are like younger than me. So it's kind of cool to feel like I kind of started a movement. And I know I'm not the only, the only one. There's other collectives and people who have done great things. But there really has been, and you live in New York, like a big resurgence of just like Black younger DJs. And when I say younger, I just say not OG age, you know what I mean? People born in, the 80s and 90s and after. I guess now we're like
and after
23. I'm like, man, some of these people were born in 2000, which is crazy. It's like, and it's almost like, electronic music is still niche, but I mean, when you go to some of these parties in New York, it's like everyone knows about it, it's still pretty big.
The fact that we like really think of it as niche, right? But then at the same time it's so big. It's big, just it's really I'm still, like I said, I'm still recovering from movement, and I'm still trying to digest all the input that I've got. And I went to the actual festival just very briefly. But even that is its own like monster, and I don't mean that in a negative way. That's really a big thing. But then everything else that is happening around the festival is just, I couldn't even keep up. I couldn't get to all the things I wanted to get to. But I say that because I'm really happy. Like, Underground and Black was the party that I could not miss, and rightfully so. And also the young DJs that you just spoke about, or some of them, they really like amazing. And I think you posted it that these people are the future, and it's really great to see. Like, with some DJs I see the influence, like who their mentors are, like, really, and they carry on the tradition, and it's really beautiful to see.
Like, you can tell, like, Dion, Mefta, like Julian are like descendants of Theo Parrish in a sense, or they worked closely with him. But like, I'm just into people that are just keeping the legacy alive and doing it the right way. You know what I mean? Because everybody wants to be a DJ. Anyone can be a DJ, but not everyone is doing it the right way. You know what I mean? So I think it's cool to take time to highlight the people that are just putting on, not just for Detroit, but just for American DJs, you know what I mean? Just doing what we do, because this is where the music started. So I think it's important that we still have players in the game of every generation, like, representing.
Right. You just mentioned they're not doing it the right way. What is the right way? And also, not necessarily for yourself, but what is the intention that you have with everything that you do, but also what is your long term, I don't want to say goal, but like, DJing is a long term, whatever the marketing term is, but it's a long game, so to speak. But what, and your career has been steadily going up. What is something that you say, like, okay, but what if I'm 60? Like, do you see yourself completely retired on the island? Or it's like, what is it that I can do when I'm older but still has an impact? We all want to do the island part.
Island. I'm like, you already answered it for me on the island. No.
So I'm using a cliche, but what are some of the, I guess, long term, not where you're not required to actually be in the booth? What are some of the goals?
That's a great question. Like, to be honest, I literally think about that now, because I've been touring maybe I haven't even been touring extensively. I've been touring, I guess, the past 5 years, but hasn't really been hardcore, I'd say, till these past couple years. But now that I'm getting a peek into it and living it, I am kind of thinking like, what is my next step? What does this look like? Touring is amazing. It's super fulfilling. I plan to continue doing it, but I definitely don't see myself like doing month-long tours like in a few years from now, maybe even next year. Like I'm doing a 2-month tour this summer, and I'm like, okay, it'll be cool, but I think just contributing any way I can, of course, like still making music, throwing events, maybe help open a venue one day or something. I don't know specifically, but I am kind of actively brainstorming because touring, it can take a toll on you. You know what I mean? It can be isolating. It could be lonely, being away from your family. But it can be really rewarding for some people as well. But I think for me, if I could find like a balance of touring with other things, or mostly just focused on touring locally, I think that would be cool too.
Right.
Because flying across the ocean all the time, people look at it like, oh my God, so amazing.
Taxing.
But yeah, I mean, to each its own. But yeah, I'd be tired.
I was wondering, like, if you travel that much, right, and you tour, or I guess not even, you don't even have to tour, but just like constantly from one gig to the next, right? Whether it's overseas or whether it's here.
Yeah.
At what point, or does it get to a point where it's like, this now, obviously it's a job, but it feels like more like this is a job now. And like, does there come a time where it gets more draining and you have to get yourself, okay, I have one more to go and then I can relax? Where it's, these are the not so glamorous parts of being a DJ. And then what do you do to come back to be like, no, this is still great?
Yeah, I think you just have to have that gig. Like, you have to have that gig where it's like so amazing and so rewarding, and you're like, okay, this is why I do it. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, I mean,
especially, sorry to interrupt you here. Sometimes what I've heard from other DJs, just not like in an interview, but where sometimes you get booked to play a certain sound, or you get booked to play a certain set, or you get specifically booked because they want to hear only your production. So you kind of like feel like you're forced in a way, like, oh, you have to do a certain way, even though you might not feel that kind of way that specific day. And I've heard, some DJs, they do change their sound after years of career because they play certain venues that is, very, I always call it the European sound, which is, less soulful, put it that way. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts on that. Well, have you seen already like certain glimpse where you're like, okay, yeah, I never want to do that, or like...
Yeah, I mean...
I don't know if my question makes sense.
No,
also.
It makes... I mean, I will say, like, for me at least, I don't really compromise my sound. Like, usually it's like, you're going to get Ash Lauryn, or maybe like it may be maybe not be my favorite tracks, but tracks I still like that are catered to this specific event. But most of the time, I'm playing music that I love and that I like, and I'm like, look, if y'all aren't fucking with this, I don't know what to tell you. But usually it works. Like, usually people like the music I play, so I will say that. But, I mean, yeah, I think it could be definitely draining to feel like you have to be a certain way, you know what I mean? Or you can't play the way you want, then you're tired and you're traveling around. So I think it's important to remain authentic, you know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're not being authentic anymore, yeah, it probably is draining, or it's not going to be as fun. So I think I also get that boost of like, I'm doing the right thing when I show up and can authentically be myself and have people love it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have to try to cater to whatever specific, you know. And not to say that that's wrong, you know. I think as a DJ, like, of course you should kind of do your research, figure out what type of gig it is. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think you got to just stay true, get your rest, drink water, and just make sure you have gigs on the calendar that, represent you and gigs that you like. Because, I mean, yeah, if you're just doing all festivals, or like for me, if I was doing like only festivals or something, that would drain me. So it's important to have like those more intimate small room gigs on the calendar as well too, where I feel like I can just be a little more just me.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I went kind of sideways after we talked about the Underground and Black Party, but I was actually also wanted to talk about the track, what did you call it? The theme song. Which it has been released on. Is it always going to be an all vinyl release? I got a copy, so I don't.
Right. As of right now, I mean, we were saying like since there's been so many inquiries about it, but I think for now, I don't think like he had said maybe digital, but that was like a couple months ago, and now I ain't heard him say that again.
All right. So talk about how that came together, because it's Alce and yourself.
Well, it actually came together really cool because it wasn't my idea. It was Kai's. He was like, yeah, like, we should do this track, Underground and Black.
Why
you just going to name stuff that's, you going to make a list. You going to make a list of stuff that's underground. You going to make a list of stuff that's black. And I was like, okay, Alce. And then, like, I think this was before COVID. Like, I don't know, it like got on hold. Like, or we had worked on it and it had been like months. And then, like, I don't even know. I just kind of was like, oh, whatever, you know. Because it was, like, real when we recorded it, but I still, like, I don't know. It was, like, real, but it wasn't. And then, yeah, like, last year he came back, like, okay, like, we're going to record this for real. Or he wanted me to add something else, but when I was listening to it, you know, it had been, like, a year prior, and I was like, no, I'm way more confident than this now. So we recorded all of it. And I think I, like, changed a few, like, lyrics or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, we had, you know, kind of talked about me playing Deep Detroit at some point. So yeah, like, long story short, to be invited to like do the record Underground and Black, have like my own theme song, then it's on the special edition, which is like, you know, super like hierarchy house music like record. And of course Kai is an inspiration to me and to a lot of my peers and us in Atlanta, Detroit, around the world. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was just a good look. It was a great project. I think the track is dope. A lot of people like it. So yeah, it's like in the history books for me of like, you know, my career or things that happened this year. To be able to make that music with Kai, it was really special. So,
dope. It's a dope track. I really like it.
So shout out to him for like having the idea, because like he came up with it. I'm like, this is genius.
Thank you, Kai.
Right?
Yeah. So that was my segue into the production part. I want to start with your Truth EP, which was the first one, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned, like, I'm way more confident now. However, one of my favorite tracks of the EP is the title track, Truth. So what inspired you making this, or like did you have in mind before you even started producing? It's like, oh, I want to say everything. I just want to, you know, speak my truth. Or is this something where it's like, I want to produce, I just see what comes out, you know, to paraphrase.
Well, Truth EP was actually inspired by some haters.
Oh, like, so there is a story behind it.
Yeah, like it's way too long of a story to go into it.
No, we don't want to know.
But yeah, I think I had got a message from Mike Banks through Cornelius Harris, both from Underground Resistance. They had kind of supported me in this hater situation that happened because it was public.
Oh, wow.
If you want to look into it, you could go check out undergroundandblack.com. It's still up there. I don't take anything down. I'm just not going to go in. It's too long of a story. No. But yeah, I think Mike Banks had said something of like, you know, you need to speak with the music, you know what I mean? Speak with the music next. And I think maybe even for a second they had talked about doing a record with UR, but that all fell through. And then, like, you know, I was in the car with Stefan. I think we were coming back from like Florida. And I was just like, yeah, like, you know, we should do it, you know, like we should go make this EP. And he was like, he supported me through the whole situation with like the drama. And yeah, we got in the studio soon after that. And shout out to Stefan Ringer, co-producer of Truth EP. I will say Truth was the first track we worked on.
Oh.
And I will say I felt most a part of that one from a technical standpoint. But also there's the vocals on there, and yeah, he kind of just slowed my voice down. But yeah, I was like, I'm so tired of people trying to twist your words around and make you out to be something that you're not. All you have is your truth. All I have is my truth. So it came from a real place, you know, and I still don't know if people really know or took the time to listen specifically. But it was a difficult situation for me because, like, my intentions in the industry have always been extremely pure and authentic. So it was very hurtful to have people come after you and say that, oh, you're fake, or oh, you're not this, or you don't appreciate the people that have helped you, like you're fake, da da da. So, but in the end, it's crazy because I'm like, you know, that EP like really changed my career. So, you know what I mean?
Where are they now?
Exactly. I'm almost like, thanks, haters, because, like, seriously, it sparked something in me, you know, and I had, you know, great support around me. You know, Stefan, we got in the studio. Also, you know, Life is Back. I think I'm like moving along to the next one. I mean, just I think the whole project was special, but I think Life is Back was also very meaningful too because it was celebrating those feelings of being back out into the world, being together again, being on the dance floor again. And yeah, it's kind of like just like a memory of that time. You know what I mean? So
that's dope. Well, yeah, I think I don't really hear people play the Truth track. Obviously, Life is Back.
Yeah.
A lot of people play it. And yeah, whoever hasn't heard the track, I just recommend everybody to do so.
There's a DJ called Detroit in Effect, like a really, really sweet like vinyl DJ from Detroit, but he plays Truth all the time.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, he loves it. He's like, man, I love this. And he like speeds it up. It sounds crazy.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't really I've honestly probably never played it out, which is still fucking crazy when I say that. But it's still my truth though.
It is still nobody's gonna question that.
Yeah.
What are some of the do you have even a favorite of yours, like from your, not from this specific EP, but in general, a project that you've done so far that was, I'm assuming all of them are meaningful in their own way, but something that stands out?
Maybe like Dancing in the D, maybe. Because I remember when we were working on the project, we had a track, I think, that we were gonna like put on there, and I was like, no, like we need a club banger, like we need something's missing. And then from there came Dancing in the D, and like I remember I was like, oh, this is like superficial. I'm like shaking my ass, like I didn't want to. I don't know. I just was like, I didn't know if that was like cool or not, but yeah, it ended up being a dope track.
No, it's a dope track, and it works. It definitely works.
Yeah. So. I mean, that's probably a favorite because it's just like a fun club track, and it's like shouting out Detroit, which Detroit people love to do.
What is some you gonna keep producing? I presume, is there some projects that you're looking forward to this year or maybe next year? If you can't speak about it already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm still working really closely with Stefan. We have some remixes coming out. I guess I can say this. Defected, we did a remix, and we did a remix for Brownswood Recordings.
Oh, nice.
And this Afrobeat band called Coco Roco.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, so that's actually coming out this summer. So I think we can announce it now. But
this might come out at the same time, this podcast. Yeah, so at this point,
I think both of the stuff is coming out this summer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
nice. All right, I have a few more questions. I wanted to touch on something. It's not on my list, but I don't want to dwell on the hater part, right? But it reminded me of something that especially for women in this industry, that's something. Do you still get confronted with things where you're like, you don't talk about it, you don't really dwell on it, but it's like, yeah, if I would have been a dude, that would have never happened? Or certain things that people say to you where like, you're out of pocket, but I'm not going to say anything because it will come back to me of me being, something that unfortunately on a daily basis of being a woman and a black woman in the industry, that's like, I don't want to say you struggle with it, but it's still an issue that you might want to address, or that is something that is there that shouldn't be?
I mean, can't say like maybe anything direct. I mean, I guess in reference to me being a woman, like I guess sometimes I feel like with my success, maybe people think, oh, it's only because she's a woman. You know what I mean?
The other way around.
Yeah, or I don't know, or just maybe sometimes feeling like, oh, I'm not deserving of some of the things. Like, I mean, I can say my experience as a woman in the industry, I think, has been pretty great, specifically because of when I got into it. You know what I mean? Like, I started DJing in like the disc woman era, when everyone was like talking about supporting women and like giving us our shine and all these things. So, and me kind of working, you know, in queer spaces or with other women or like black people, like I feel like I've had a pretty good journey. Not to say that like there's not a lot of bullshit out there, because I hear about it. But I feel like people have kind of given me my respect. And sometimes I wonder, is it because of who's around me? Or, like, do they know I'm outspoken? And I'm going to be like, no, fuck that. I'm going to the blog. Like, you know what I mean? Because, like, even some of the stuff my sister tells me, like, some of the experiences and some of the shit she goes through, I'm just like, no. You know what I mean?
And I'm not, I'm in no way would consider myself a feminist, and I'm not like somebody, oh, I want to talk about women as a, you know, women DJ. It's kind of like, it can get into like corny territory. However, I'm just speaking of like from my experience, from my little experience so far, and that's why I just I'm curious if there's still something.
And also like I think just depending on where you live, you know what I mean? Like living in Atlanta, it's a smaller community, but I mean some of my friends that DJ that live in Berlin or live in New York City, like some of the stories I hear, I'd be like, damn.
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? But I think being a woman in the industry, I don't know, like it's, there'll always be ups and downs, you know, there'll always be people who won't like it or think you don't deserve it or think you don't know what you're doing or think you're only where you are because of someone else or because you're cute, this or that, but fuck them, you know what I mean? Because all you can do is just keep doing you. Like sometimes I have to remember to drown out the noise, because sometimes I feel like I'm making shit up in my own head.
It gets noisy out there.
Yeah, but I've had people come for me like, oh, I taught her how to do this, I did this, that. Like, fuck you. No, you fucking didn't. You know, like, you know, there's people that contributed to my career, of course, but, you know, ain't nobody gonna take responsibility for me and what I've done and created and who I am. And I think you just got to stay true, you know, to who you are, keep your head high. But yeah, it's just got to keep up the fight, you know what I mean? And like, I know I'm not exempt, you know what I mean? Like, I know something could come up and some bullshit could go down, but I think when you're in this industry, you just got to be ready for it and just know how to go about it when it happens. And knowing how to just not go for the okie doke or let people play you or disrespect you or not pay you enough money or disrespect you or whatever. You know, I've really had to learn how to like, I mean, I've gotten respect in the past, but I'm very much of like, no, this is what I need, you know, like, no, I don't want to use whatever mixer I need, what's on my writer, you know what I mean? Not trying to sound like a diva, I mean, but I mean, wanting the mixers on your, I mean, that's like the bare minimum, but you know, sometimes people may try like, oh.
But that's the reason I'm bringing it up, because I feel like we're then made to feel like if we do say this is what we need, this is what I want.
Yeah, it's like, oh, she's high maintenance.
Yeah, for no reason, even though, you know,
but if
we're just asking for
if it were someone else, exactly. If it was like an OG or something, it's like, oh, you know.
That part.
Yeah, we just gotta respect ourselves too and force that shit on other people.
Make it like make it a thing. Yeah. You know, so it's like the more, I don't want to say the more people speak up, but if it's like a common thing that everybody is respecting themselves and it's like, no, this is what I need, then it's not like out of the ordinary. That's just not one person that says that.
Yeah, because I mean, I can't imagine the way like women in the industry maybe were treated just like historically over the years. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, you gonna do whatever we got, girl. You know what I mean?
Basically, like, I have two more questions. Again, going back to this interview I watched with you and Virgil, is he mentioned, or you guys mentioned, the overground and underground thing, and I don't really remember how he defines overground, but it's, you know, the conversation of like what is underground and what is pop, and some people, once it's pop, quote unquote, it's not good anymore. Do you have any views on that, and like how do you navigate that space between like trying to be underground, like I shouldn't say trying to be underground because I can't speak for you, but keeping it true to the underground,
yeah, of course,
but then still obviously trying to do the best to be successful to whatever your definition of success is.
I mean, like you said, it's just trying to learn how to navigate the balance. You know, like I think it's okay to do a commercial look. Like I did a live stream for Armani Exchange, you know what I mean? So I guess someone could consider like, oh, you're like a brandy person. I don't know, but it's like, I guess to me, it was still the music I was playing, I was still being authentic to myself. Mm-hmm. So I think, and obviously like some of these more overground gigs are paying quite well. So I think as long as you're not just completely selling your soul or like doing something that you're not comfortable with, mm-hmm. I think that you can find a leverage, because again, like what really is completely underground in 2023? Like we're on the internet, we're posting flyers on our phone. True. Everything is so accessible, but I think underground is more so just like a mindset. And I think also like with music, it's a sound, you know mm-hmm. what I mean? Like maybe not every gig I do is super underground, but the sound will always be rooted in underground music, you mm-hmm. know what I mean? Rooted in music from Chicago, Detroit, New York, which at one point was underground. Right. So I think you just have to know how to balance it, you know what I mean? I don't think if you start doing everything as just a corporate look, you know, me, paid partnership, you know, like I don't see that for myself, you know what I mean? But I am also a businesswoman, mm-hmm. so if I get approached by a company and they want to work with me and I see it beneficial and I can still remain authentic, then I'm going to go for it. Okay. Because I think, again, like, if you want to just remain all the way underground, that's cool, but you're not going to make no money, and it's too expensive to live. To live out here. Yeah, like, seriously, you have to be, I mean, like, yeah, our music is on Spotify, like, Apple Music, YouTube, like, nothing is truly underground, but I think just the way, you know, you conduct yourself, your sound, you know, the root, what all of this is rooted in, you know, my history. Like, no one can ever take the underground away from underground and back. But, like, seriously, like, I mean, and I was there when it was underground. Like, I was at raves with my sister when that shit was underground. So, you know, it's like we're living in the future now. So, I mean, we have to embrace, like, the tools and stuff around us as well, which is being above ground. True. Yeah. True. And my last question, which I'll ask everybody, is something, since this podcast is called Dance to the Music, right? We talked about dance a little bit, but I wanted to ask you if you can name me 3 tracks. Doesn't have to be electronic music, doesn't have to be dance music, but it has something that reminds you of dance, whether that was you and your family, whether that was you playing it out and everybody went crazy, or that's something that's just you, whenever you played in your head, it's like, oh, this is making me feel like I want to get down. Okay. I guess the first one that comes to my mind is Music Is My Life and the World is a Dance Floor by Louis Vega. I really like that track. I don't know, it just makes me think about dancing, and it also is like, you played this. Yeah, music is my life and the world is a dance floor. It's like literal. God, I mean, maybe this is easy, dancing in the D. Like, I mean, it's right there. I mean, I do listen to it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, sometimes I'm like, all right, girl, no one's listening. You can listen to your song. Like, and I guess, like you said, my family, I don't know, like Earth, Wind, and Fire, September. That makes me think. Oh, sweet. I can't sing, you guys. But yeah, those songs make me think of dancing and joy and family. So that's nice. Yeah, that's nice. Well, thank you for taking the time. Is there anything else that you wanted to say that I haven't touched on, or only like didn't touch on enough? Or that you want to get rid of? Great interview. Like, thanks for asking the question about the Truth track, because I don't know if I've ever like told that story or what really inspired it, and I always kind of wanted to be vocal just about just what inspired the whole project, and you know, just to show like that a dark situation can turn into a beautiful one. You know what I mean? And it sounds cliche to say, like, my haters, you know, like, they helped me get, like, thank you to my haters. But seriously, like, sometimes those negative moments inspire something beautiful around the corner. So don't, you know, just keep your head up out there, you know, and just embrace the beauty and the pain. Because, there's always something cool
the
around
yin
the
and
corner.
the yang, for sure.
Yeah,
for
exactly,
sure,
exactly.
yeah.
So thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you, everybody, for listening. And thanks again for Snipes and Ladies of Hip Hop for the space. And we'll see you, or I guess we hear each other next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.